Poco X2 has a metal glass sandwich design flanked by Gorilla Glass 5 on the front and the back. The X2 has a side-mounted fingerprint sensor. The bottom edge is home to a USB Type-C port, a 3.5mm earphone jack and a speaker grill. There's an IR blaster on the top edge and volume rockers on the right edge. Poco X2 features a 6.6-inch Full HD Plus resolution LCD screen with a dual punch hole cutout in the top right corner. It gives the display a 20:9 aspect ratio, which offers a wider screen state for viewing videos or playing games. The highlight of the display on the Poco X2 is that it supports a 120Hz refresh rate, which offers smooth navigation and it helps improve the gaming experience. Poco X2 has a 64MP quad camera setup that uses Sony IMX686 sensor for the primary camera with 1.89 aperture and PDAF support. An 8MP ultra-wide lens follows this with a 120° field of view, a 2MP macro camera with a minimum focusing distance of 2cm and a 2MP depth sensor. The phone has dual in-screen cameras on the front, a 20MP primary camera supported by a 2MP depth sensor for selfies and face recognition. The X2's camera system can record at 4K and slow-motion videos at 960fps with electronic image stabilization support. It also supports RAW image capture and a vlog mode with 7 styles. Poco X2 is powered by Qualcomm Snapdragon 730G chipset paired with an octa-core CPU and Adreno 618 GPU. This is a gaming-centric processor by Qualcomm as it brings some Snapdragon Elite gaming features to the table. It renders graphics 15% faster than the previous generation, supports true HDR gaming and cinematic quality processing. The phone comes with 8GB of RAM and 256GB of storage option. The battery capacity is rated at 4500 mAh with support for 27W fast charging, and Poco claims the fast charge provided in the box can refuel the phone fully in 68 minutes. Poco X2 seems like a value for money offering with a high refresh rate screen, powerful chipset tuned for gaming, a versatile quad camera array and fast charging support. The Redmi Note 9 Pro is a bulky phone. The front and rear of the Redmi Note 9 Pro are both made using Gorilla Glass 5, while the frame is polycarbonate. The most distinctive feature on the front is of course the new embedded selfie camera, which is centered at the top of the screen. Xiaomi has done well in terms of design, and the Redmi Note 9 Pro does feel fresh without actually changing too much for a phone in this segment. There's the usual USB Type-C port, 3.5mm audio socket and a speaker on the bottom. You get a 6.67-inch Full HD Plus screen which has a tall aspect ratio to accommodate the front camera. It might surprise many fans who follow current trends because it is a standard 60Hz panel and doesn't have a 90Hz refresh rate like some other recently launched devices. This device comes with a Snapdragon 720G chipset. You can get the Redmi Note 9 Pro with 4GB of RAM and 64GB of storage, or with 6GB of RAM and 128GB of storage. The Redmi Note 9 Pro is more than powerful enough to handle anything from basic calls and messaging all the way up to heavy 3D gaming and with no trouble whatsoever. The squared-off camera bump on the rear might also surprise some Redmi Note series fans. It is a quad camera setup. The primary shooter has a 48MP resolution with 1.79 aperture. Next to it you will find an 8MP wide-angle camera, which is a pretty standard for this price level. The 2MP depth sensor in the lower row is also basic. What is interesting is the fact that the macro camera has a 5MP resolution. This device comes with an improved night mode, super face detection autofocus and a color profile optimized for Indian users. Video can be recorded at 4K 30fps or 1080p at 60fps. 720p slow-mo recording goes up to 960fps. One of this phone's primary target audience is video content creators, especially TikTok users. So there's a short video mode with a 15-second cutoff. The front camera has a 16MP resolution. With daytime photos, we found the primary camera to be reasonably good. Close-ups look good and details were clear in foreground subjects. The 5MP macro camera does deliver much higher quality shots than we have seen from most other macro cameras. The front camera is fairly good in daytime as well as at night. As for the battery, it comes with 5020 mAh capacity with 18W fast charging support. Xiaomi Mi F3 smartphone was launched in 7th July 2019. The phone comes with a 6.08-inch touchscreen display with an aspect ratio of 19.5:9. It is powered by a 2 GHz octa-core Qualcomm Snapdragon 665 processor. it comes with 4GB of RAM. As far as the cameras are concerned, the Xiaomi Mi F3 on the rear packs a 48 megapixel primary camera with an 1.79 aperture and a second 8 megapixel camera with an 2.2 aperture, and there is also a third 2 megapixel camera. The rear camera setup has autofocus. There is also a 32 megapixel camera on the front for selfies with an 2.0 aperture. This device is based on Android 9.0 and packs 128GB of inbuilt storage that can be expanded via microSD card up to 256GB. It is powered by a 4030 mAh battery and supports Quick Charge 3.0 fast charging. The Xiaomi Redmi Note 8 Pro smartphone was launched in September 2019. The phone comes with a 6.53-inch LCD touchscreen display with an aspect ratio of 19.5:9. It is powered by a MediaTek Helio G90T processor. It comes with 8GB of RAM. As far as the cameras are concerned, the Redmi Note 8 Pro on the rear packs quad camera setup consisting of a 64 megapixel main shooter and a 8 megapixel ultra-wide lens and a 2 megapixel dedicated macro lens along with 5 megapixel depth sensor. There is a 20 megapixel camera on the front for selfies. This device is based on Android 9.0 Pie and packs 128GB of inbuilt storage that can be expanded via microSD card up to 256GB. It is powered by a 4500 mAh battery with 18-watt fast charging support. It was launched in black, red, blue and white colors. Xiaomi Redmi Note 9s have a 6.67-inch LCD screen. The full HD Plus resolution is pin sharp, with an impressive 91% screen-to-body ratio and a tall 20:9 aspect ratio. The Note 9s is comfortable to hold in one hand. Meanwhile, the phone's carved glossy glass back is an attractive contrast with its matte sides. With Redmi Note 9s, we have moved away from the screen notch seen in previous generations to a new dot drop display. This involves a tiny cutout at the top of the display for selfie camera. Xiaomi's Redmi Note 9s might be a budget phone, but its performance is decidedly mid-range. With the help of the Snapdragon 720G and 4 or 6GB of RAM depending on the variation, you are getting very good performance from this device. Xiaomi Redmi Note 9s comes with 4 rear cameras which are housed in a big square camera module. The main camera here is 48 megapixel shooter that uses a Samsung image sensor. There is also an 8 megapixel ultra-wide camera, a depth sensor for portrait shots and a macro camera for close-up photography. You can record 4K video at 30 fps and 720p super slow-mo video at 960 fps. On the front you have a 16 megapixel selfie camera. The camera app is generally easy to use and you can swap between standard photo, the 48 megapixel mode, portrait, night, panorama and pro modes. But this being an AI camera, the general idea is to point and shoot. If you are a keen photographer, you won't love this camera phone, but for most people it will easily suffice, and especially at this price. The key selling point of this phone is arguably its battery. This is a massive 5020 mAh cell, and given the budget to mid-range hardware inside this phone, it could easily last you up to 2 days depending on your uses.